Hey everybody, it's Lynne Magnavite with Magnavite Communications, and today it's MC Live, the interview series. Real talk with real people who have real strategies on how to communicate in this crazy world. I read this quote the other day by novelist Ursula K, and she wrote, "One of the functions of art is to give people the words to know their own experience. Storytelling is a tool for knowing who we are and what we want." When I read that quote, I thought immediately of my friend Martita Rodriguez. Martita has been in the beauty industry for many, many years, but what some people don't know about her is that she's got some amazing hidden talents. She's a writer, she's a storyteller, she's a poet, and I thought it would be really cool to highlight some of those hidden talents. But also at the same time, I was at a networking event last week, and we were all having, I would say, a very difficult time with that elevator pitch, that rigid, structured, kind of, 15 words or less of what you do. Who is it? What do you do? Well, I thought instead of talking about what we do to engage an audience, why don't we talk about who we are? And what better way to talk about who we are than through storytelling? So I thought, oh my gosh, Martita is the perfect person to have this conversation with. So I wanted to just have an organic conversation, talk about storytelling, sort of what her process is and just some of her inspirations. And then perhaps through that, we can gather some ideas and put together some strategies on how to tell our own stories. So Martita transcends what she does, and she talks about who she is. All right, let's launch in. So, yay, this is Martita.
Hello everyone, how are you?
I'm going to ask you a few questions, Martita.
Sounds good.
We're going to start with, first of all, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. This is such an honor to be on your show.
I mean, it's great fun, and I love, we were talking a little before we went live, that it's just great fun to talk to friends who are so talented and have so much to share with everybody else. And so instead of keeping these things hidden, let's bring them out. So what, I guess, like from context, what or who is your inspiration?
Well, my inspiration, of course, is poetry, music, anything that cultivates any kind of artistic development. Right. So one of the people that I look up to a lot is Oprah. I think I look up to her a lot because of how she tends to bring everything together. And I think that's something that within music and art and communication, it helps people do. And so that is a huge inspiring thing for me.
So, every time I think of you, I think of storytelling. And, I may be putting things on you that you don't necessarily recognize that you do, but you have quite a story to tell. And so tell me about authors that you love, why, and how that sort of bleeds into your life and how that helps.
Well, for me, the one person who stuck out the most, I have many authors and poets that I love, but the one that stuck out for me the most and changed my life literally was Maya Angelou.
Ah, okay.
At a young age, I turned to her books and saw myself within her books, and that helped me feel seen and heard, and it also inspired me to want to share my story because I felt so connected with this person I had never met before, but was writing down things that made me feel like I knew her well.
Right.
So she's definitely been a huge inspiration of mine. One of my favorite poets is Nikki Giovanni.
Okay.
I feel like the words that she puts on paper, it just can light the paper up. It takes you on an incredible journey and just very truthful, very, kind of how I like to do my writing, which is very truthful, in your face, kind of, let's just not hold anything back and really show a level of vulnerability. Sometimes people are uncomfortable sharing.
When did you make that decision? Like you make an internal decision sometimes of when you're going to, embark on a journey. When did you decide you had a story?
I know exactly when.
Ooh, I like that.
And it's a little story for you. But,
okay, I like it.
When I was younger, I came from a sort of dysfunctional type of background, lots of violence and craziness in my life. And so I was an only child and I didn't really have a lot of people to speak to. But I remember getting into third grade and meeting my third grade teacher, Marilyn Schneider.
Okay.
And in her class, she would always kind of single me out, like, because I was so quiet. And she would always be like, "What are you thinking?" And always asking me. At first, I was always kind of hesitant to share, because within my family, one of the rules was you don't talk about what's happening in our family. It took a while for me to trust her enough to open up and let her in. But once I did, I actually looked forward to going to school every day and seeing her, and she would ask me about what's going on. And I remember the writing thing started when we were about to go on summer break. And she asked me, why I looked sad when I came to school that day. And I told her, I said, I'm so used to coming in and telling you about my life. She was almost kind of like a therapist kind of audience person, for me. And so she said, well, let's be pen pals.
Oh, wow.
Throughout the summer. We both lived in Philadelphia, but in the summer she'd go off to New Jersey to be at her summer house.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, great.
Wow.
And so we started this relationship where we became pen pals throughout the summer. And then after the summer was over, we became like best friends. Like she would literally take me out to New Jersey with her. Her husband used to drive these Greyhound buses. It was super funny.
Oh, wow.
And it was always me and like a bus full of old people going to the casinos and stuff. But what I appreciated a lot about her is that she gave me almost permission to express myself freely and truthfully without judgment. And throughout that summer that I did the pen pal thing with her, I would write out, everything that I would normally tell her in real life, but more detailed because I kind of wanted her to be able to visualize what was going on. And she would say that all the time. She was like, God, I love reading your letters. It feels like I'm reading or I'm watching a movie.
Wow.
She's like, I just love how you write. And she would always say these really positive things about it.
Oh, wow.
And then that just sort of led to so many other things. Like I joined a bunch of book clubs because it was one of those things where I never fit in my environment that well. Right. But I could read books and I could fit into that environment, or I can, relate to something from someone completely different than me, older, younger, different color, different race, anything. And it became this gigantic portal for me to go into when my life got hectic or hard things were happening and I felt alone. I could go into a book, or I could write a letter, or I could journal, because journaling was a huge thing for me too. And that was all inspired because of Marilyn, because we kept it up even as an adult woman. Before she passed away, I would still write her letters.
Oh my gosh.
And so she, we barely saw each other as often. I would go to Philadelphia sometimes and be able to see her a little bit here and there, but mostly our contact remained through letters. I would love to write, just some maybe short stories on just her alone. I mean, she was a force. She was a well-respected and much-loved human being. She was a third grade teacher at St. Boniface Grade School, and she changed a lot of people's lives, and it was a lot of just her validating you, making you feel seen and heard. Yeah. And I know I came from a family that if you're a kid, you're not really heard. You're just, go away, sit on the corner there. And so she was always like, made you feel like a star.
I guess that's the importance of teachers. I come from a family of teachers.
Are so important.
Yeah. And I think that I was speaking with my friend Gretchen the other day, and we were talking about the importance of nurturing talent and taking the time to notice something. And teachers are really where it starts, and that teacher is plays such a pivotal role to be able to push you and move you forward. So that's a really
they can develop your growth, or they can stunt your growth. Because I've heard stories, where a teacher will say something to someone and kind of make them not want to go down the path that they were originally want. And I feel really grateful that I happened upon Marilyn, because she was, out of all my teachers, one of the ones that I felt helped me grow the most.
Well, you know what they say about critique. If somebody critiques you, whether it's a teacher or anybody, it makes you stronger and want to go do it and prove them wrong. So there's that push. Throughout the development of and you mentioned journals. So does journal writing today, do you still, writing journals is huge and in a huge industry right now.
I believe journaling is essential. It just really is. I think it helps us sort of navigate around our emotions. It helps us to, remember things, because I think a lot of times we'll forget these beautiful, joyful moments, because that's what I try to live for, the little moments of joy, while you're going through your everyday life. And I think it's just one of those things where it helps you kind of remember who you are as well. I go back and I read my journals and I see all the development and all the growth, or things that I still continuously do today that I still want to work on, or stuff like that. And I think it's just a major an outlet for people, like a very therapeutic outlet. So
some journals are structured, some journals are free form. Do you kind of gravitate to one or the other, or do you? I freeform for sure. Okay. It's just random. Whenever whatever thoughts I have, I put in there. Sometimes I'll write little short stories and make it a little more structured, but mostly it's just freeform. Just trying to, for me, it's just really just navigating how I feel about things, or if I'm processing something, or something major happened in my life, or something joyful happened. I just want to make sure I put it on paper.
I have a really dear friend of mine who also practiced that. His name is Dave. He'll journal things and like call me and then read back for like 2 or 3 years back. And
wow.
I literally can feel those emotions that I felt at that time when it happened. And I'm so grateful for that, you know, because I think we sometimes, life just speeds by us. And I think that helps us slow us down and really be present for that moment. We're inundated with information anymore, you know,
that's true.
With social media, with TV, with just everything, you know, and just in even our everyday environment. So I think it is helpful, and I think healing to kind of get up and put all that stuff on paper, and it can either heal you or lessen your anxiety or build you up or motivate you, depending on what you want to feel that day.
Yeah.
But I think it's important.
So there's journal writing and there's writing when you're writing a book or writing short stories or whatever. Do you have a specific process?
I definitely have like vampire hours, for sure. Yeah, I feel like whenever it's the darkest out, as I, 3, 4 in the morning, I'll be more inspired, feeling like I need to get things down. Sometimes what'll happen is actually I talk to myself a lot during the day. So I'll be in my car, I'll be like in the office at work, or I'll just be wherever, and I'll find myself literally talking to myself. And then by the time the evening comes around, then that's the time I think, okay, let me put these thoughts on paper.
So I did read a study that said if you do talk to yourself, and people who talk to their animals, I think it's an excuse. Like I will talk to my dogs all the time, but I think it's an excuse. But it shows a sign of creativity.
Does it really?
It does,
oh, thank God. That was crazy.
no. It's actually a good thing. I think that actually validates what some of those articles.
Yeah.
It's very creative. When you speak out loud to sort of hear the words and then you put them on paper, are there any other methods? And I know you meditate. Does that help?
My meditation is more for to quiet my mind and just to be. I think it's really hard for us, especially in our society right now, it's just to be. And I need those moments of just stillness and trying to quiet my mind and be one with my breath. So for me, it's mostly the talking to myself, because for me in my head, I'm talking to like spirit guides. And so because I feel like I'm talking to spirit guides, I feel like they're also asking me questions that randomly pop into my head, and then I'll answer it out loud.
Right.
And so it's like a weird process, but that's kind of how it works for me. And then sometimes at night I'll just be sitting and either listening to music or watching TV, or sometimes just still, because sometimes I like to just sit with my plants and just be quiet, and something will come up and it literally turns into this entire like story or conversation that I have to get on paper.
Yeah, I think that over the last at least 5 years, the whole concept of multitasking and hustle, I mean, everything is like side hustle and go fast and do this. And if you're not doing, 15 side jobs, you're not excelling. And if you're not, working 24 hours a day, you're not excelling. So I think that going back to that, being present, I talked about being present last week with, I guess, Scott, being present, being in the moment
it's a lost art.
Like it's
hard.
Art.
It's not easy. It's like to ask someone to sit 10 to 15 minutes, and just be. Yeah. It's a process, and it's funny because the benefits that come from that are just gigantic. It just sort of helps you kind of feel centered and balanced, right? And so it's just worth doing it.
So just FYI, I've known Martita almost as long as I've known my partner Jack, which is a long time, and we have had some pretty amazing conversations. Yeah. And I just love talking with her because I always leave completely inspired. Let's talk about you. Music is really big in your life.
Oh, yes.
Performance art. You talk out loud to hear the words. You quiet yourself. You put together words on the page, but then you like to share the words on the page. So I know you go to a lot of performance art, a lot of poetry readings and things like that, and you've done some?
I've done a few. I'm navigating around a little bit of stage fright.
Okay, I can help you with that.
Yeah, I need help with that.
I can help.
So I've tried my hand at storytelling a little bit. For me, I write, and so when I want to tell a story, I rather read the story. And I know some people can get up and just tell a story off the top of the head. And actually, for me, that's easier behind the chair. Yeah. While I'm cutting someone's hair and doing something, I could tell my client the story, and then I get frustrated because I'm like, why can't I be on stage and do that? But I think it's because you're such the focal point on stage. Yeah. I get in my head. So that is definitely something that I'm in practice now to try to overcome.
So that's why, this whole concept of performing your own words. So that should help in some way, because I know it's hard. It's you sharing.
It is. I mean, you're very vulnerable up there by yourself telling your story. And for me, like, the best types of storytellings that I like to witness are the people talking about their personal life and things that they've overcome, or just inspirational things like that. So there's a sense of truth that someone has to deliver to the crowd and have a connection with them. And I mean, you always do wind up getting a connection, but that's still, as an artist, you're sensitive about your work. Yeah. And I mean, I know that anyone who knows me, when I say that I'm shy, laughs in my face, because I do participate in a lot of things, but I am a very shy person. And when it comes to being vulnerable, the shyness just gets, bigger.
The talent you have and the drive you have to tell your story, you're mixing it with your situation. You're also mixing it with the music that inspires you. You're mixing it. Martita is an avid traveler. So how does all of that augment your experience?
It's all, for me, a journey. I think music takes you on a journey. Travel takes you on a journey. It's sort of self-discovery, discovery about foreign things and lands and people. It's just a knowledge that you just can't get anywhere else. When you travel, you just learn so much about people, how similar we are comparatively to how it's always viewed that we're so different. And then with music, whenever words fail you, music can speak for you.
Yeah.
And so it all just takes you on this journey of either communicating or, showing some sense of emotion. It's just, I think they're all so go hand in hand, and they're all so very important.
Have you had an experience that your writing has helped others or inspired others?
I think the biggest thing about writing is that's moment where someone can say, oh, me too. Mm-hmm. And I think, so when you ask me if I think that some of my writing has done that, I think some of my stories, my writing, and some of my recommendations of music to people has done that. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, they'll either hear a story that happened to me and that makes them feel closer to me, helps them feel less alone, or they also experienced it, or they listen to some music that really resonates their emotion at that moment. Anything that I feel like I offer it out of a place of love and try to growth.
Right, and and I just put two and two together. I mean, in your many years in the beauty industry, you're making people beautiful, and you're also you're saying, hey, you're a beautiful human being, but in addition, here's some other things to help you feel beautiful.
Yeah, because I mean, really, outside beauty is lovely.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
We all want to attain that,
Sure.
but I think the inside beauty is priceless.
Absolutely. You've taken some writing classes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Tell us about some of the writing classes, because most of your work is organic. When did you decide that I need a writing class, I need to be more structured with how I'm figuring this out? And what prompted you?
Yeah, inspiration, really. I wanted to be around like-minded people, and I also wanted to learn from people who are out there doing it and doing great things. Mm-hmm. I took a writing class for storytelling with Scott Whitehair, and it was incredible. Like, he was trying to get me to get over my stage fright.
Right.
So gave me the space to practice in front of people. I got to listen to great stories and how people put their stories together, and it was really inspirational. Mm-hmm. I took another class recently at the Second City. It was a humorous memoir writing class, which was also really nice, because a lot of times, when I do write personal stories about my life, the stories, they include a lot of tragedy or violence and stuff, but there's a lot of times where I would tell these stories out loud to friends or someone that I could trust and share these stories with, and they'd wind up laughing. And I think because my delivery was so sarcastic, and that's intrigued me. And I thought, how great would that be? It reminded me of someone like Richard Pryor, who would tell his very truthful, crazy story about his life, but you were laughing with him. Right. And you can also feel that pain too. Yeah. So it was like that, you couldn't get any more connected. So that inspired me to take that class. And then I've taken just a lot of different classes. A lot of times I get an itchiness, like I have to connect with like-minded, spiritual, spirited people, and I'll just sign up for a class and go, or I'll go through some portal online and meet a group or try to learn from them. So it's really about learning and trying to also just connect and see how I can collaborate with someone else that likes the things I like.
I love when you shared your story out loud, some people laughed and it made you think, because that sets the tone in your style. When you're writing and you're very personal and it's personal to you, different when an audience happens. It's just that's art, right? Because you never know how an audience will ever react. You
can't control any of their perception.
Even if it's like you said, the most serious play in the world, somebody will eventually laugh. I mean, just the nature of the
and if people are like me, I tend to find humor in a lot of things, even the tragedies. And I think that's maybe a coping mechanism. Maybe. But it's also, it helps you kind of be able to step back from something, and when you can make light of it, I think it's important.
So here's where I want your advice. The situation is we're entrepreneurs, we're business people, we're just somebody at a party, and somebody comes up to us and said, hey, hi, who are you? What do you do? Are there any hints to helping us tell our story?
I think it's going to sound super simple, but I think truth. I think you want to connect with people via the truth of who they are. Like that's one thing I will say I've never loved about when you first meet someone and they're like, so what do you do? And,
I know, I hate that.
It's,
it's out of my mouth too. I hate myself.
And we can't help it.
It
wants to categorize us right there. Mm-hmm. So I think if you try to strike up a conversation without that and then have that come later, I think that would be better. Because I think people connect through truth, I
love what you just said. So you're meeting somebody at a networking event, and instead of getting to that place of you take the lead and ask maybe an open-ended question,
like why are you here, or what brought you here, or who inspires you in this field, or I think just get deeper into knowing the person and not trying to sort of put them in that box of like what label they are. Right. Because we're a lot of things.
Absolutely.
And when people ask me sometimes what I do for a living, I get it. I understand what they're saying, but sometimes I think I'm so much bigger than that. So I think that's the thing, getting into people's layers. Really,
you are a layered human being. I love that. So ask a question first, an open-ended question first, and then let it organically kind of come back to you as to, well, this inspires me too because of X.
Exactly. And that's, I think, makes the conversation more fluid. It just helps you kind of open up more, builds trust faster, because you come from a place of non-judgment and really just wanting to know the real truth about somebody.
And I know many times you have just a few seconds to do that. How do you make an impression right away? Like how do you feel that you would make a 15, 30-second impression?
For me personally, and I can't speak for anybody else, a lot of eye contact and really engaging someone. Making sure when I speak with them, I'm really listening. Because I think that's another lost art, is listening. People will ask you, how you doing? And then walk off. Or what do you do? And then not really hear you.
Yeah.
What's your name? And how many people remember someone's name?
As I interrupt you.
See? But that's what I'm saying. You're taking the time to be genuinely truthful about the engagement that you're trying to make with someone.
Yeah. We talk. See, I think I'm seeing some themes in the discussions that I'm having with our fantastic guests, and actively listening, because how many times have you had this? You're at a networking event and somebody is like, oh, hey, and they're really looking past you to the next person. And you're like, okay, well, then that's not a connection you really wanted anyway.
Or they're waiting to formulate whatever the comment they're going to make after you finish your comment.
Right.
So, and that, it takes away.
Formulating that comment and or formulating an opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else can you carry with you to sort of tell your story if you're not used to telling your story?
I think your interests tell your story too. I think
very smart.
The kind of music you're into, the way you're dressed, the kind of fashion that you like, the kind of travel you like to do, a lot of your interests will reveal to someone who you kind of are a little,
So like, oh, I love that purple. Purple reminds me of when I went to, Mexico that time. And, and you're like, oh my gosh, I went there too. And then
and I've planted a whole bunch of purple flowers in my yard. And it goes on from there.
Exactly.
And then you start talking about, oh, we both love flowers. And then blah, blah, blah. And it goes on and on.
Yeah.
So I think we complicate things too much. And I think it's sometimes just
smart.
making it super simple. And by I mean simple, just be truthful.
We do complicate things. And I think going back to what you were saying before, being still, being in the moment, meditating, kind of just finding your truth, that lessens that complication. Are you working on anything right now that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm actually, and I'm struggling because I think writers go through this where I'm trying to write the story of my life. I'm trying to write a memoir.
Okay.
I'm struggling if I want to make it funny or if I want to just make it just straight out. Trying to determine what will connect people with it. Because I think that's the bigger part of when you write a story is you want to develop the why. Why am I writing this story? So I'm in the process of developing the why. And I think my why is because I want to motivate people. I want to encourage people. I want people to know that if they come from a certain background, regardless if it's, from your finances, your race, whatever, you can overcome and you can still have joy in life and you can make big things happen. And I also, coming from a place of being a woman, just to kind of resonate with other women and connect with them on how you live your life and be truthful to yourself and to actually live out loud and not kind of let society or anything else subside you. So it's all these things that I'm trying to cram into my story. And it's definitely a process, but that's what I'm working on now. So what I do is I just write short stories right now. So I take a little time to write short stories and then hopefully I can kind of put them all together and see which ones I want to use and which ones flow well with each other.
And are you sharing these short stories?
A little bit here and there. I shared a humorous one about after I got divorced about online dating. And actually that one I did on stage, which was really funny because I was trying to deal with the stage fright. And I went on there, told the story, could hear the laughter, hear the people enjoying the story, and then got off stage and I literally couldn't remember that I was even up there.
That's good.
Yeah, I completely blanked.
You know, that's good. So there's a book. I cannot say his name. It's a very long name. It's Czech. He wrote a book called Flow, and it means that you are in the creative space. When you're in the moment and in the creative space, you can't remember a thing. So actors have that. It's like this blackout when you're an actor. You go through the whole performance, you get off stage, and you're like, was I even on stage? Yeah. So you had that. See, this is
wow, good. Yeah, I was sort of like,
this is
upset with myself because I wanted to feel present and in the moment, but I was like literally just on getting the story out, and then I of course loved afterwards. People came up to me, were receptive and happy about it. But that's something that I also am trying to work on. I'm going to be signing up for some classes, maybe some improv classes.
Okay. Because
I kind of want to get out of my head and be able to really connect with people without worrying about my being vulnerable. What
advice do you have for somebody who is interested in writing down their story, writing a memoir, getting into writing or poetry? What is your first step?
I say connect with like-minded folks. Take some classes. I definitely say journal. Because that'll keep your creative juices going and it'll keep you motivated. It'll keep you knowing that you have something to say. But I would say like meet up, utilize social media. There's a million groups that you can join, writing groups, storytelling groups, and just find out which one you mesh best with, you know. But take classes, join different networks. A lot of them are free. You can go to meetup.com and there's a million writing groups there that are, you know, you just meet at a cafe and you meet people who love to write about whatever topic that you might want to be writing about. So I say just get out there and do it and motivate, because you know, it's easy to sometimes just go, oh, it's a lot of work and stuff. But if you get out there and you motivate and you carve out some time in your day to really just jot down some stuff or talk to yourself. Right. I think that is really helpful in trying to get you started.
So where can we find you, Martita?
I'm on Instagram under Miss M for Style. You can also find me on Facebook as Martita Rodriguez.
But thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been wonderful. Go out there and communicate well. Speak your truth.